/Elm Cross-Curricular. So I did put that in the chat as well for you guys. And it looks like everybody at least introduced themselves. It looks like we got a lot of like lower elementary. And then we got an art facilitator as well as middle school person. I just want to hang out with us elementary people. So just wanted to go ahead and get started with that. So we want to start off first with some questions of how will cross-curricular lessons benefit the students and how can we make lessons more meaningful? So let's start with that first question. When we think about cross-curricular lessons, we're thinking about taking two different content areas, combining them into one. So take yourself off mute or put in the chat, why do you think this is beneficial for our students? And how is this beneficial?
And you can also talk about what are some things that you might have already tried already during this time.
I love the answers we're getting in the chat. Building critical thinking, building in some real life relevancy with learning and content that just doesn't exist in the classroom, especially when we build in those two things together. It's showing that it's not just an isolated thing, that this involves the rest of the world. So I really love that answer, Lori. And then students are able to make connections outside the classroom as well. It's not just, we're learning this and we're never going to apply it again. So how can we show that these things are connected? I love that.
Yeah, and I like critical thinking, and I like engaging ideas. Right now, one of the struggles for students is that they're not being able to relate to the activities that they're doing. So they're just doing an activity just to say that they do it, and they're not having that experience, and they're not being able to connect. So I really like able to make connections, and then building real life relevancy with learning and content that does just exist in the classroom. That's so true. So all of those things are really important. My daughter just said she's been doing synonyms all week long, and then she had her writing and she kept saying good, and she could not relate the two together because apparently word work is different from writing. So, in her mind it is. So, I definitely think making those connections and tying into real life is super important. Okay. So with planning for cross-curricular, there is not going to be like a certain answer. There's not a secret potion or some kind of secret formula that we can have for cross-curricular, but these are some different structure that Katie and I thought about, and we think that it would help to develop a good cross-curricular lesson. So first, we look at Eduphoria, and we look at the teak. And so the very first thing when we say look at the teak is look at the verb. But it's really more than the verb, because if we just say recognize, so if it's saying recognize, so recognize synonyms, if we said that. So then what happens if the verb says recognize synonyms and how it affects the overall story? If we remove recognize synonyms and isolate that entire big idea, and then we will lose what they're really trying to get is really like how do synonyms affect a story. So not necessarily being able to just recognize them, but their effect as well. So sometimes that when we look at the verb only, we sometimes lose the meaning of the teak. And that's really not a teak. That was just a pretend teak. But for you to see that see that sometimes it's looking deeper than just the verb. So we would look at Eduphoria, and when we would look for cross-curricular. So we would look at our science, our social studies, our ELAR, our math TEKs. And then really break down, this is my student expectations for the week. Then, based on the TEKs and what you were able to dive into, you would develop a question or an idea that would be relatable to students. Okay, and so in a minute you'll see a little bit more what we're talking about because we have an example that will break down. And then student creation. So what could the students create that would give them that would in turn help them answer that big idea question or idea. And then the last thing is sharing with others. We want others to have authentic audience. And so this doing something, we want whatever they create to have more than just this one little thing or turning it in for the teacher. But why am I creating it and who's going to see it? So, Katie, if you don't mind moving on to the next one. Okay, so this is an example, okay? And so the TEK is to describe how natural resources and natural hazards affect activities and settlement patterns. And so this is one of those TEKs that I was talking about. So when I first looked at it and I needed help and I was like, oh, describe natural resources. I was like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. And that's what I just like had in my head. And I had one vision. But what I didn't realize is, and this is my fault, and I'm being open and honest with you, I didn't see like effect, that word effect, because that word effect is the really most important. So really, they're going to have to get to understanding about natural resources. A second grader, which is my daughter, is going to have to understand natural resources. But more importantly, she hasn't met that TEK unless she knows how it affects different places that people settle. So, for example, not just saying that trees are important because they provide wood, okay, because of the wood that they can create from trees. But I would have her to say that if I was living in a desert and there wasn't any trees, then it's probably harder for someone to have a wooden house or a house made from wood because there's not very many trees. And so they're going to have to import and get wood brought in to a place that is desert. So that is that's what the TEK is saying, right? So we're going to have to dissect the TEK first. Then from that, we are going to have to develop a big idea, thought, or question. And I like questions. And the reason why I like questions is because it gets kids thinking and it gets them curious about what the answer is. They always want the answer for everything. And so if I just say a statement, it doesn't leave them with, oh, I have to find that solution. And so the question here could be, no, it doesn't, it's not is, it's just could, a suggestion. Why are natural resources important to where we live? Okay, so during this big idea process, we have to think about what are students going to need in order to be able to create a product that helps answers that question. So during this, as we're generating this question, we're going to have to develop some instructional aids that will help students to be able to get to answering that question. And that's going to take some researching. It's going to take maybe a read aloud excerpt. It's going to take doing some think aloud videos, okay? So a think aloud video could be, yes, we just said that they're going to have to know about natural resources before they can actually dive into the TEK. So first of all, I can make a think aloud video and I can make it about natural resource. I can say, oh, I'm looking around my kitchen and I'm trying to see something that I use that just is natural, that just is from nature. Oh, there's water. And so if I'm thinking through my thoughts, that is going to, I just kind of dubbed them a think aloud video. But it's important to help them scaffold to getting to be able to that creation step and that process. So then in the creation process, I would create an informational text about the big idea question using your graphic features, okay? And so then they would create a book, okay? I would take this a step further. Once they create a book, is at the end, I would maybe have them create a little excerpt or a video on Flipgrid that that would talk about the different graphic features that they put into their book, why they were important. So what did they add to the story? Because not only do we need them to realize that they have to recognize graphic features, but we also have to we also need them to know how they're important to the story. And so the last thing would be that they could create a class slides that they could share out on Twitter. And a teacher at Smith, she did that. They did create these books, and then she did put them out for her Smith staff to see. Okay, Katie.
Definitely.
So we are wanting, because we have such a small group, I don't think we need to do our breakout groups, but you can go ahead and take it on.
Definitely. So if you guys look after the breakout room slide, it has the different scope and sequence, and it just has the big ideas. It doesn't have the teaks, but that way we're thinking about next week. We're thinking about what kind of things our kids can do during this time. So I want you guys to kind of get your materials together and kind of start looking at some of these things and thinking about, like Kristi's process was, what is that big idea or question that we can look at with some of these teaks that we're going to give? And then from there, what kind of inspiration can we give to that student creation, and how can we share it out? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to kind of get your things together and everything. But what we have next is these slides that you guys can fill out, or like Kristi was saying, since we have such a tiny group, would love for you guys just to take yourselves off mute. But thinking about, what is the big idea or problem? How could we teach to the verb of the teak? And then how are we getting the students creating? How are they going to demonstrate that they understand how to do this? And then how can we share this out for our authentic audience? So go ahead and take a look at your scope and sequence for the next couple weeks, and let's start brainstorming. Let's start getting some ideas together.
And I know, Lori, that you are the art facilitator, and we actually had 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of art teachers in our class, and we were able to come up with some really great ideas. We have attached from the distance learning sheet, the agenda that's on that distance learning sheet that Debbie Tanton sends out. The link to our agenda is there, and it's also our April sessions. So you can also go and look at our April sessions. Oh, and I didn't finish this. In our student creation class, I'm sorry, in our student creation class, that we didn't do one this week for, but we have done in the past. And so if you look at that, actually, let me get it out up there for you. Let me just do that for you, because I think that you would be interested too to see some different things that we're doing, or that they thought of. Here we go. I put that in the chat so that you can see the student creation class too, and some ideas that we had.
Then Edith and Angelica, I know you guys were kinder and first grade. What were some ideas that you guys were thinking of, or what do you feel like would be your biggest bang for your buck?
Are you talking about a certain, like, math, science, or were you?
Whatever you feel like you can combine together for a cross-curricular activity. Like, what were some of the specific teaks that you were looking at to build together?
In looking at the first grade on writing, like opinion letters
I was thinking probably give them some readings or like information or text where they're trying to state an opinion about something, and then just have them write their own opinion. Like, what do you think?
Well, and that can be perfect with that historical figures as well, giving them informational text about the different historical figures that are in the teak and have them write an opinion about why they think this person is the most important or something.
And I kind of did something similar last week with historical figures. They read about Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. and I asked them, like, well, they did more like of a comparison between the two, and they came up with the similarities, how both of them have fought for the rights of people, and that's what they did.
So I don't know, Edith, what your plan is for literature circles, but because I know that different schools are doing it differently. But one of the schools that I work with, they were thinking about doing a few picture books and doing them historical figures. So fiction and nonfiction. So doing 2 to 3 of them. And then that can be their literature circle for the week. So they're going to have, because I know literature circles is going for 3 weeks. And so they're going to have 3 different literature circles. And so they would pick which literature circle they want to be a part of. And they would learn about that person through the fiction or nonfiction text. And then they would write their letter about why their person is the most important.
Oh, okay.
So really, it's a few activities, but it all has one purpose of hitting all 3 different ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I know with kindergarten, Miss Abanez, I can never say your name very well. I'm not very good at it. I know, you can laugh. You can laugh. She's a dog singer. I know her. I'm just gonna say Miss I. So one of the things that we talked about last week for this class, and y'all are still actually doing the same things, but y'all are in group C, right?
Yes.
For plants and animals.
Mm-hmm.
So has Yoakum shared with you the map that she's working through?
The what?
The map that the virtual field trips.
Yes.
Yes, I thought she did. I've made it, and I share it with her every week that I updated it, and then she's been sharing it with y'all. So they're gonna take that road trip map with the different zoos, and so they're going to because I know that it's persuasive text for kindergarten, but it's just more like the opinion thing. Like it's not necessarily a persuasive text; it's more of your opinion. So they're going to talk about what animal that they've seen so far was the most important. And so they're thinking about and they're looking at like which one is the meanest, which one is the slowest, and doing like different words like that, and talking about like, if I say meanest, what does that word mean? If I mean slowest, and then they would have to make an opinion paper or opinion text with their inventive spelling and everything with that. And so being able to put in that road trip map and what they've been already kind of looking at, those virtual field trips and live webcams, and then keeping through that with that text.
Yes.
So, and that also goes right to like the setting the purpose too. I mean, I know that's a lot that y'all are doing in reading comp, but like, again, like saying like, why am I writing what I'm writing? And then whenever I'm reading something, why am I reading that? And also, they have been doing some read aloud books on some animals, and I can get some of those too.
Okay.
Yeah. Miss Andrade, she's kindergarten too.
Yes.
I was telling Katie. I was like, but I would also love to hear if you have any cross-curricular ideas for like the job skills, like the financial literacy for kindergarten, like maybe even like have cross-curricular.
That's where I'm a little having trouble with the financial literacy. And I mean, they can always go back to, you know, writing something or making. It's kind of hard to kind of tie that together.
So when we talk about job skills for a kindergartner, what exactly do they have to know for a 5 or 6-year-old?
Let me see. Hold on, have not pulled that up.
I know. I'm like, what? I just know you've been teaching kindergarten for a while, so I didn't know if you knew. I didn't expect you to already know. We have, well, actually, Miss Andrade too. Y'all, they're both seasoned kindergarten teachers.
As far as I remember, I know that they're supposed to be knowing like the different skills, like, you know, okay, that's a doctor. What does a doctor do? That's a policeman. What is his role? That's a teacher. What is her role? But yeah, I do agree with Ms. Ibanez that the financial part, because, you know, they're not required to count money, like, you know, but they're supposed to recognize it. So it kind of gets a little tricky when you have to teach the financial part of it to a kindergartner for them to wrap their mind, you know, how it really works.
Yeah, I'm going to get into curriculum and look. And maybe I can come up with some ideas based on what.
So, I mean, there's different, because that's topic 16, the personal financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a TEK on every lesson. Like on lesson 16-1 is ways to earn money. So it's identify ways to earn income.
Okay.
And I remember from my previous schools that we had once done a little, like a lemonade stand. And then the teachers were to create a day in their classroom where each student would be selling something. Like they would have like a cooking stall, or they would have a lemonade stall, or a stall for pencils, or whatever that is. Not necessarily knowing exactly how to count, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see it. I see it on their thing. On your thing, it says kindergarten store.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's new this year, because we've never really had a kindergarten store in our curriculum tied into
really?
Yes, we've never had it.
Okay, well, it is on here this year.
Yes, I know.
Well, Miss Sevilla, talking about like a kindergarten store, I know first grade does their goods and services project, which is kind of like a store. What kind of things do you guys do? Because that could be like a vertical alignment kind of a thing as well.
Yeah, we usually, like, the students created goods or a service, and then they would get like fake money, like pennies, nickels, dimes, and they would set up their prices for their products, and then we will come together and they could sell and buy stuff from each other using their fake money. So it all related with goods, services, products, and math. They needed to know the right amount to buy things from their friends.
Okay, so they don't have to in kindergarten, they don't have to know that like a penny is worth 1 cent and a dime is worth 10 cents. Or no,
Yeah, they do. Well, I mean, to me that's kind of, well, they're not, but identifying is okay. Which coin is worth 5 cents?
Right. Yeah.
Before identifying the U.S. coin.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because identify U.S. coins by name, including pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. Okay.
Like, what platforms are you using in kindergarten? Google Classroom or Seesaw?
We're using Seesaw.
Okay, because I don't know if you have seen all of these Facebook pages where teachers are using Bitmojis and they're decorating their rooms and stuff like that. Maybe you could have something like that and have the students buy like different things to decorate something and say, okay, this little puppy is worth 2 pennies. This other stuff it's worth 3 dimes. And they don't have to count it, they just have to know or identify the coins.
I like that. So I'm sorry, sis, I don't ever really get on Facebook. Where is this?
It's like maybe you creating an avatar or a little doll or something and have them buy stuff for their little doll or whatever you want to put in there. Like they could buy like puppies or a pillow or a lamp or whatever you want to put in there. It will be like kind of like a virtual store, and they will have to show you the amount of coins that you want them to show.
Okay. Okay, so the same thing how I said about the with the like animals and what's like the slowest animal, like the fastest animal, the best animal or whatever. You could do the same thing. So I went through some of these activities that's in curriculum. And so one of the things that they have to know is to draw a way to earn an income. And then it said like possible like jobs that they could say are like teachers, police officers, construction workers, nurses, farmers, and things like that. So they could pick one of the ways to earn income, and then they could explain why, like an opinion of like why it is like the most important job or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The T for like this whole job thing, the reason why like it says job skills is there is because the entire TEAK for kindergarten is identify ways to earn income. That's the TEAK. Like your TEAK, the TEAKs. The thing I like about kindergarten is those TEAKs are very like simple. At least not pretty are. And then the next TEAK for the next day are like list simple skills required for that job. So in that opinion article, they would have to say like, why is this the best job? You know, so first like what ways to earn income and have a job that they pick, and then reasons why that's the best job are those, or it goes with that TEAK for the next, like the lesson 16.2 is list simple skills required for that job. So when they say why it's the best job, they're going to be putting in the skills that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So really that entire like paper that they would do, that opinion paper, is pretty much taking care of your TEAKs for at least lesson 1 and 16-1 and 16-2.
Correct.
And of course, it's not going to be like a paper. It's going to be like, you know, their inventive spelling and their pictures and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
let's see, second grade. Miss Casares is here. Oh, no, she got off. Never mind. She actually came last week to the same class, so I think she realized that.
Gotcha.
Huh?
I said gotcha.
Yeah, Miss Casares. Yeah.
I thought she looked familiar.
Yeah, she came last week when we had all the
Okay.
teachers. So for art, Lori, I think that all the grade levels in 1st through 5th grade are doing literature circles right now, and so if art teachers could have a way to tap into that, that would be awesome. Like, drawing settings, maybe doing some of the different things that they might have done. They've learned, like what is it called? I don't know what the technical name is, but where they draw or they color everything in one color. And so they could draw the setting of, like, the beginning setting of the story in from their literature circle, and they could make it with that monochromatic color. I'm not really sure. I don't know art terms, but and then like where we could, it's like what's inside, like for older kids, like what's inside like the character's head, and being able to draw different things. Like if I could like put this character into a drawing, what would it look like? I think being able to,
perspectives, like talking about point of views, like within that, but looking at a scene from different perspectives as well.
Yes. Also, just like based on like what our art is doing for my daughter's school, but they also did where you take markers and you draw the markers on a baggie and you color it, and you stick it onto your paper that you did, onto your drawing. And so I thought that would be cool to even do, like if you were to recreate the book, because they said, oh, just draw the mountains or just draw something. And they didn't really say like what it had to be, just like a landscape of some sort. It would be interesting if they like remade a cover, like a book cover for their literature circle, and then that's what they put it on. And I don't know, that would be kind of cool too. But there's all kinds of things. But I think definitely tapping into the literature circles for art teachers would be super helpful. It would be really interesting perspectives for the teachers, and it would be a great collaborative opportunity. You can make books of great artists and make books of great artists, great art teach, with illustrations that also cover art careers as a teach. Oh yeah. So that's it. Okay, so you know how we were talking about jobs and things like that too? Art careers would be a great one, because I know that they're doing money, finance, and things like that in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. So doing art careers too and putting that into it might be a great way as well. I'm definitely going to tell my art teacher Raven about literature circles. I don't know why I haven't told Raven before. She'll do it. She's pretty great about doing great things that are meaningful to the students. Okay, so we have lots of ideas that we kind of threw out. Everyone was adding. We had great conversation about for the different grade levels that are on here. What are things? What are oh, there you go. So what are like things you're excited about? Challenges, fears? What are some different logistical things that you need to talk through? We would love to hear the implementation part and how that may look, and what are some of those logistical things that we need to work out for implementation.
For me, it's just since I'm using Seesaw, just getting everything together at like accessible to kids for Seesaw.
Yes. Okay. So, one of the things, if y'all do it as a grade level, because I think y'all are, I mean, y'all are pretty much doing the same things. You can make activities so y'all all can, and I think Jessica's been doing this, but y'all can make activities and then share them with each other. So y'all can talk about it and say, okay, we're going to try Cross-Curricular next week. And we're going to have the kids do these 4 activities. If they do these 4 activities for the whole week, then they'll be successful. And then taking y'all and breaking y'all up and say, okay, you work on this activity, you work on this activity, you work on this activity. And then once you have put it and loaded it into Seesaw, then you just share that activity with each other. And then y'all will just load that activity. So all 4 activities you'll just load up into your classroom. So really you're not having to think of logistics for all 4 and putting them in, and you just think of it for that one. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do y'all do that already? Do y'all already do the activities and then share it with each other?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, so I think that is going to be the easiest. But I would probably like think, what are y'all, because I know that it's Thursday, so y'all have already like planned pretty much, because I know when y'all plan. How many activities were y'all thinking about doing?
Well, we used to do a lot of activity. We used to do 3 activities per day. Yeah, every day. So it was at the end, it was 15 activities till till Friday. But then we cut down. So we're doing 2 activities a day. But and it still goes up to 10 activities, for the week. But I do like how, that if we integrate it all together, it could be less activities, and it basically still gets the concept and point across.
Yes. I mean, I think even 5 activities with cross-curricular, and then providing time for the kids to have those conversations. So I actually met with Jessica last week, and so I'm sure she probably already talked to y'all about everything. But she's going to have them start talking to each other and collaborating. And so allowing them time to just do that. So like if they were to have done like an activity where they like talk about their like the slowest animal that they've seen and why on these live webcams, then they can have a conversation. They can have the comments and talk about, say, do you agree or disagree? And they can agree or they can type in and talk, and they can do that with the blog feature in Seesaw. Also, they can add to their own journal. So they can say, hey, on the blog, I posted all of your opinion papers about the animals. How about you go into the blog and look at everyone's, and then you click the plus sign and you make a video talking about your friend's paper that you thought that was the most similar to what you thought too, and then tell me why. And so then they could make a selfie video, and then you could add that journal to the blog as well. So we talked a bunch about ways to get the kids talking to each other and looking at each other's work, and that's also that authentic audience. So yeah, you only have 5 activities that they do, but then they're responding to each other and looking at each other and doing things through that, and that becomes more activities without them even really realizing it.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. Well, Katie, do you want to say anything else?
Just what Laura kind of said. I know you guys are self-contained, but really getting with some of our specialist teachers for collaboration purposes. I know over at Tosh, one of the spotlight teachers this week was a music teacher, because she was really integrating and working with her teachers to get some authentic writing going. The kids would write with it or whatnot. So getting in with some of your specialist teachers too for cross-curricular stuff, you know, right now those kind of tend to be the forgotten subjects. So really thinking about your specialist teachers during this time and how can you collaborate with them to kind of, you know, spruce up what you're doing as well.
All right, ladies, I'm going to jump off because I have a Google Meets.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining in, and our class is done. Thanks. If you need any help implementing, let any of us know. And yeah, so have a great afternoon.